This is the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board, Tuesday, September 17th, 2019. This meeting is called to order. Do we have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
All in, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes. Have they been out there for everybody to
I
see?
sent both September 3rd, the ones that Tom did, and I also sent August 6th.
Anybody have any revisions they'd like to see? Is there a motion to approve minutes of both August 6th and September 3rd?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Marine Department report, not seeing representation. Natural Resources report, no representation there. We'll move right into old business. Goals and objectives. Peter, is this is revised?
Well, all I did was, based on the minutes, I cut out the ones where we decided to remove or change the ratings, the priority levels. So I made those changes, and then I added in the issues that everybody had, which basically is everything on the back page, and throw it to the wolves and see what you guys say, and if anything you want me to change, I'll make note of and change it so that then we will have a document that we work from, that we know that these are our priorities going forward. And now that I figured out how to use this, it's just a Excel file that I turned into a PDF, and I'll make it bigger type for you, Ginger, sorry.
Didn't bring the reading glasses, sorry.
So, yeah, finally had time to get to it. So, whatever you see, I'll hear it in the minutes and I'll make the changes. So
can I go to it?
go to it.
Just on.
Or no, I'm not, Andy.
Andy, can I go to it?
Please.
Just starting on the alternate mooring systems. Since I decided to take that over, I think you can take McClure and Kuntz out. I think we should probably clear out the disposition and the timeline, just because it's pretty dated, and I'm hoping to start working on that by the next meeting and give you some reports back as I review all of Fritz's stuff. I took the summer off, so but that's my comment on that.
Tom, thank you for picking this up. I'd like to suggest that you somehow reach out to mooring handlers. One who's very receptive is Matt Anderson.
Okay.
He's the one who told me that if Helix moorings were more popular, he'd be willing to invest in the equipment. Nantucket Marine was the only outfit with the equipment. Harbor Master has a couple of good reasons for not using these, but I think maybe some adjustments in the methods of how they're installed could alleviate her concerns.
Well, I'll meet with the three of them, with Nantucket Marine, with Anderson, and with Sheila.
Well, and who took over Metcalf's portion? The Rhinamo, one of the Rhinamo boys does the.
Tim Rhinamo has the mooring business.
Yeah, and I mean he's the biggest handler of moorings. I would have to imagine.
So I'll start meeting with people and seeing what they think about it, and I'll read the backup information and see where we go from there.
I mean, especially in areas where the harbor master's concerns were scallopers, dredges fetching up on
Yeah.
the helix mooring. But if they're used in areas that are never used for. There's plenty of mooring fields. Washington Street. There's nobody scallops there with dragging
But also, there
dredges,
must be a
but-
way to put a cap or something on there.
Well, the cap,
so they can get
yeah.
over it.
I'm
I mean,
thinking
it can't
more
be-
that
can't be-
it should be buried further down.
and then capped underneath.
No, just have a ribbon
My-
or a little loose chain on it that can be dragged over and not fetched up on,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what marks it.
Yeah.
And so the loop, the hard portion, the solid connected to the earth portion, is below the surface. The dredge just drags over the top. It has no teeth, so it's not going to fetch up on something that's below the surface. Ginger?
Oh, I just was sort of recapping things. What I remembered was that one concern was that the scallopers would fetch up on it and drag their boats under. Another was that they came up too easily, and there was a certain inconsistency in that. And the other was that if they're having an anchor rod as the chain anyway, and they're killing the eelgrass, they're not actually serving a function. So, did we resolve that?
Sheila mentioned that the few helix that are in place are using chain.
But
so-
they can't be using as much chain as
Right.
my mushroom uses.
Then the other issue was the rubber band type attachment instead of the chain can attract so much growth to it that it ends up dragging on the bottom just as a chain does. These are just, I just want to bring up these things so you have them noted and don't have to rehash some things,
I need to know. I don't want to look like I'm a total novice.
getting
but I am.
opinions starting with Matt Anderson, I think would be my choice.
Okay.
If I were you.
I'll look them up.
Yeah. And if I see him, I'll let him know.
Okay.
He's Stillwater moorings.
Yes. And feel free to reach out to any of us.
Okay.
And of course, Fritz.
Fritz
and-
gave me a
Yeah.
phenomenal amount of paperwork to read.
All right. Any other board members' comments on alternative moorings? Thoughts?
Other than that, we should stay on Sheila, and make sure, because it was the pilot program with the door moor, the experimental one, the one that we like, I guess.
I don't know if we do or not.
Well,
But
either way,
yeah.
the experimental pilot program that we wanted to have this spring got shut down because they needed to focus their time and the money on repairing the floating pier.
Weren't they going to do that in Monomoy?
Yeah. So they were going to, anyway, we were going to
Which
try
is
and
where
do
my
that.
boat is, so I'd be part of it, which would be good.
Right. We were pushing for that, but then the damage to the pier, and then we needed to do the work. And so Sheila said that the town, Libby, basically said, let's not do that this year.
Okay.
So we just got to stay on her.
Start working on these guys.
Yeah. Keep in mind that we may want to have that, some sort of experimental program, but I don't know. Yeah.
And this is great information. Thanks for the help.
has a door moor been actually brought to the island?
I don't know.
Because
Or no,
Fritz,
what did Sheila say? She uses them on all the aids to navigation.
really?
Yeah.
All right. It got to the point.
At least she uses the inverted pyramid block of cement. I can't say that she uses. I don't know if she uses the stretchy tackle. I'll bet she uses chain, but
Right. It got to the point with Fritz that I had suggested to him, if he'd be willing to invest in his own door moor and monitor it and log its results himself. If there's nothing out there to judge by its performance, and I just thought, thinking to myself, I wonder if that's something that the Shellfish Association would be willing to invest in. one Dormore anchor for a certain size boat, and or one Dormore mooring, and select a person who's willing to, reveal the results.
Let me see what Sheila says. 'Cause,
Yeah. Well, okay,
I'll start the inquiry and let you guys know next meeting.
great. Peter, I was looking at some of the water quality issues. Gosh, this goes back a long way, and I realized some of these issues, there's nothing we can do about it to a certain point. I mean, I look at gulls and seals, and Sheila did a good job of putting up wire and whatnot to keep the gulls off the town pier that congregate there in the end of February and March, that made such a mess of the town pier that she has to pressure wash the entire pier. And of course, all of that seagull excrement is simply being washed into the harbor. And she's done a good deterrent there. And, I felt like, is there a way we can deter different birds, with whistle, noise? I'm not sure. I know that the pond up at Great Point, which used to be connected to the ocean and is not anymore, has a flock of cormorants around it. And when you drive by there and the wind's blowing towards you, you need to roll up your windows. It's so bad.
It's powerful, yeah.
And I noticed the same thing in the Cod of the Bay, just up from First Point or Coatue Point. There's another area where the cormorants roost at night, and if you go by there, it is really bad. And I don't want to have this, it's low priority, and this is from way back when, 16, 17, but I feel like it's something we should kind of like keep on the radar. The gray water dumping, people forget. How do we keep things, awareness alive? We've had complaints about gray water dumping before. We're told that it's really not happening, but and the same goes with boat cleaners and solvents. I realize they hand out, the boat basin hands out rules, regulations on what to use and what not to use, but I feel like it needs to be an awareness that, if you're out on a walk and you see something, say something, so to speak. So I don't know if we can make a list of things like that, or that could land in a category like that. If you see something, say something. Yeah. So before they get completely erased off of there, maybe we can find this, create some type of ongoing category. I'm just afraid some things that are really not high priority or not on our radar every day, or something we're going to be able to accomplish overnight. So it's on the back burner, and it's kind of...
They're still on there, and they may be, some of them may have low ratings, but that's a rating. Mm-hmm. Once we decide that we're done with this, then they come off. So they'll stay on there until we as a group decide that they need to go.
All right.
So.
Okay. Brooke Christian from the NSA ran into me the other day, and I'm just looking at improving communications, between shell fishermen, and it wasn't just regulations. It was, remember Tara said a while back that, she'd like to occasionally pull up alongside an active scalloper and see what's on their culling board, and ask them, what they feel about the area they're fishing in, and from what they're taking up. But sometimes a fisherman, doesn't want to be approached, and may feel like he's, going to be cited for something, unnecessarily or whatnot. It's just kind of how the mind works when you're approached. So Brooke Christian from the NSA, which I would like to be considered more of a mediator type of board. She'd like to meet more fishermen, get to be able to talk to the fishermen, and let them know that the NSA is there for them, as a sounding board.
Yeah.
And if they have an issue, reach out to them because they're a neutral party and everything, yet, are there to support fishermen in the shell fishery. So I thought that was a good idea. And, something moving forward, at least with some communication. At the last meeting, Tara was here, and it looks like this could be a nub year. And I saw Bruce Cowan, and he felt that's possible also. And by the size of what they're looking like now, there may be quite a few that are not meeting the regulated size. So there's something to keep our eye on,
Maybe
because we know that happens in cycles.
maybe there's a way to get does the Shellfish Association have the email of most of the scallopers?
I can't answer that question. I'd like to think so.
Well, maybe there's a way that the Shellfish Association could reach out to the scallopers and say, we're working on or we have a program where we would like to put one of our members on your boat for a day, have them fish with you, and let them know that we're not going to bust you, we're not going to report you, we just want to see what you're seeing, and maybe Tara could do that, they have, the commercial fishing boats have observers that are on there that report to the federal government or whatever. So this could be,
This is more of an environmental.
it's much more of a just fact finding. We want to see what you're catching. We're not telling anybody. We just, for our own benefit and for your benefit, maybe. I don't know.
All right. Well, no, I'll bring that to Brooke's attention as far as finding the scallopers' emails. They're probably available at Natural Resources, and so there's a big start for getting the list of everybody who's currently holds a license this year.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be emailing people and saying, hey, we'd like to do this. Maybe it's just knowing someone and say, hey, can I ride with you?
Yeah.
And in the next couple of days, can I go with you? And just
Well, that's what I'm hoping to be able to introduce her to some people. I saw Neil Cocker today. He'll be fishing this year. He thinks he might be coming into town. He mentioned somebody who's rigging 3 boats that has a quota they need to meet.
Or if that's the lobster trap boys who have their
Right.
scallop shipping.
Right. If do you know if Neil's affiliated with them? That's at this point. That's neither here nor there. I was glad to hear that fishermen aren't all discouraged, and there'll be some active fishermen out there. I hope it's a good season, and but it's always nice that they're available at the fish markets for sure. Well, I sure like all the topics here. Any other discussion on anything
I would just say that
related to goals and objectives?
we would just check in on a regular basis to see where we are, so we don't keep.
That's a good point.
Well, it's you look at it all and it's kind of overwhelming too. And I think
Right.
of what Joe LaPuma said about taking one issue and trying to tackle it from start to finish. But as we are, experiencing with hazardous materials, it just takes time. And I'd like to remind that October 17th, there's a meeting in this room from 6 to 8. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work out because there's a planning board meeting at the same time that starts at 5, I believe. But
Maybe they've worked something out.
yeah. And I may need to attend that planning board meeting. So I'm hoping between now and then a board member may be able to work that into their schedule to attend that meeting on October 17th. I've had a young fellow working with me all summer, and he's staying on through the fall, helping me with odd jobs, and he's very artistic. I meant to ask him this week and did not get the chance to design like this warning sticker for dumpsters. But I thought I'd ask the board comments on, I mean, it has to be really short and sweet, like no has waste, no hazmat. Any thoughts? Something that's eye-catching?
The symbol that is it's a universal no. It's a red circle with a slash through it.
Okay.
With the lettering, whatever in there.
All right.
Is there a symbol for hazardous waste?
Yeah.
Like there is for,
Yeah, there is. But not everybody might know it.
but then you could, underneath it, you could say.
Right, you could have that.
No hazardous. No hazardous.
See, once you get to spelling out hazardous, it's a long word. So, I'm trying to, is there anything else that describes has waste better than has waste? I'd like to think that has is, the condensed version of hazardous in most everybody's eyes, and mat is materials, waste would stay a 5-letter word.
Well, if you use hazmat, you can put no hazmat, no hazardous material. And you could have whatever the symbol is for hazardous waste in the middle of the circle.
Or you could have something a little bit more elaborate and you could have that, and then you could be a long sticker with no colon, and then no paint, no this,
Descriptions.
that, so that you're not bound by your inability to speak the language. You can see that it's no paint. So you have a paintbrush next to a can, or and no gasoline, no anything. Whatever this has this material, like trucks have those placards, those metal things that you can flip over so you can
Which
see
is
what
kind of what Tom was, with the symbol.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying. You could have three symbols. One symbol with paint would represent paint. One would represent petroleum products of some kind.
Antifreeze.
And just sort of let we're not putting.
I mean, it's a
junk in
dumpster.
there.
There's lots of space. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be small, but you should have it so that anybody can look at it and know that those things aren't allowed in there. And maybe some dumpsters are the dumpsters that you put those things in because the dumpsters are watertight, and those dumpsters are going to the place where they're going to collect that stuff.
Some people may not know that what they're actually working with is, in fact, hazardous to them.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a real problem.
Yep. There was a cleaning solvent that when it was outlawed, some business, I can't remember where, I was reading the article, not entirely awake. They just stockpiled a lot of it, and then their employees began to, develop cancer, and now they're suing for being exposed to the stuff that they weren't ever told was hazardous.
We used to use tetracycline for everything to clean stuff, electronics, and then Now, I don't even know if you can use it anymore. But it's, yeah, you don't know what's happening.
Yeah, it was a cleaning fluid, and a lot of mechanics' wives started dying young of cancer, and so yeah.
But even so, I didn't watch them do it. I was walking down Main Street and I smelled turpentine. I looked down and there's a puddle of white turpentine sitting in the street. So we looked around until we found the painters, and I went back to get my phone with a camera and came back. It was all blotted up. They apparently heard me, but they just
Yeah.
It's a problem. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just,
You see, this is really where it turns to the education and how do we reach out and educate about this. It can't be done completely on the side of a dumpster.
they have these meetings for the builders to teach them about the changes to the building code that they all have to meet, and they all attend because they have to learn it or they can't build here. So maybe that's a place to go with it.
Builders Association.
Right.
And spread the word to the builders. They need to be more diligent with their subcontractors and how they're handling this waste and what's going into the dumpsters. And this has been suggested before, and I've dropped the ball on that and haven't moved in that direction. But that does make sense. I'd like to hope that it could be on all contractors' radar. And just meeting one today in my neighborhood, I don't know how many times he said, "We'll be out of your hair by June. This project will start in October. It'll be done in June." And I'm like, I'm more concerned about the impact you cause during that time and how you're going to mitigate it, and dust control. Will you ask your guys when they're cutting bluestone to hook up water to their saw, please? And can you park over to the side so an emergency vehicle can get by? And how far do you go with all this educating? You would like to think, hey, these guys are in business, they should have common sense, but that experience just today tells me the biggest concern is the deadline, and right next to that is the bottom line. Those are the two biggest concerns on the job, is the deadline and the bottom line, and a lot of things seem to get forsaken in between.
Yep.
Builders Association.
Even if it was a topic, just a bullet item on an agenda they have to say, needs to be an awareness of what's going in your dumpsters. Give them a little wake up.
Okay, I've got that finally written down here, so thanks, guys. Mr. Franzuto will have information for us on dredging, I'm sure, and Chapter 91. I know he forwarded the Chapter 91 requirements of the Great Harbor Yacht Club to Mr. Pronk for him to review, him being concerned with trying to get some more reasonable fuel for one and access at that dock. Mr. Franzuto can also, is familiar with, searching for areas for an emergency boat ramp. When I first got on board here, I thought of that and traveled the waterfront from the creeks all the way to Jetty's Beach, and it's really a tough squeeze to find a decent place in town for another boat ramp that doesn't require lots of dredging or wetland activity approval. There's some deep water places, but also difficult with access. But anyhow, so for Mr. Brace's sake, not being here last week, Mr. Bossy brought in some information on an ice melt, and this was, one of my concerns in the past. For the rest of the board members, just to bring you up to speed, the previous DPW director, we had come in here and speak with us about this because previous to the previous one, I'll just go by name. Our current is Rob McNeil. Kara Buzanowski was the previous. Before Kara was Jeff Willett. And before Jeff Willett was like Don Oliver, Bud Clute. They were old Nantucket guys. Back in the 70s and 80s, we never used salt here on the roads. It was never, ever used. And I plowed snow for the town as a private contractor from 85 to 95. It was used very little at intersections that iced up only, and it was mixed heavily with sand. Never saw straight salt used. Never saw pre-treatment at all until about 2 years ago. When Kara sat here with us, the previous DPW director, she mentioned how she and all of her men, or most of her men that operate snow removal equipment, went to classes with DOT on snow fighting, they call it. Thinking, boy, it's an all-out war. So, you guys, I'm certainly familiar with our conditions here. I can't tell you how many times they'll call for snow and we get rain. And this pre-treatment thing is really kind of getting under my skin because of that reason, and also where this pre-treatment is washing to when it does rain. Anyhow, this anti-de-ice melt that is supposed to be environmentally friendly, guy JW, he actually answers the phone, and they have been selling this to the Navy for quite some time now because the Navy is tired of dealing with corrosion from spreading salt, and it's being used at Navy yards from Portsmouth to Norfolk, Virginia. He's selling it to New York City, Washington, D.C. He's coming up here to Boston. Says he loves Nantucket. Said he'd even come over here and talk to us about his product. It's a sugar beet based.
Right. I was doing some more research after you asked about the popularity, and you got, they actually were, they started this larger companies that does some big industrial things, started this smaller company to produce this, and it's based on sugar beet, and then it worked so well, apparently, as you saw, the sales, they drew it into the company now, so it's part of their full product line. So it's pretty interesting. I couldn't find the website that's on the page, so I went looking, and that's what happened. They just sucked it into the corporate website. And but I'm glad you spoke to him. That's great.
Yeah, and it sounds like a very interesting guy, real easy to talk to. Downloaded a couple more pages here, and it looks like it can be used in the solution can be used in the same type of brine truck that he's creating here out of an old fire truck. It still has some salt in it, but it's like table salt. It's
not the calcium chloride.
Yeah.
The chlorate. One of them is right. There's a different one that it doesn't have. NaCl, which is that just salt?
It's sodium chloride.
Sodium chloride, right?
Which is table salt.
Table salt, yeah.
And it's 30%, I believe. But I'm not sure.
Yeah, they have
on
a
that.
couple of them. They also have the granular version of it too, that they could put in spreaders for sidewalks and things like that. That
Mm-hmm.
you know, if they feel the need to pre-treat sidewalks downtown, which apparently they do because they can't walk the dogs downtown as soon as we have a threat of snow. So yeah, I think it'd be great if we could get them out here to talk to us and get DPW involved too.
Yes. Is the rest of the board agree with that?
Yes.
Sure.
All right. So back on the radar,
Should we add
the-
this to the list?
yeah,
As I'm thinking back in the,
yeah,
Water
because
quality
this
issues.
is gonna this could
Well, it's
take some
basically
time.
On the stormwater runoff section, use of ice melt, is that,
Mm-hmm.
oh, is it there?
Okay.
Yes,
Yep.
okay, good.
Yep.
All right.
and that could just.
No, that's
expand
fine.
To include the roads.
All right. So I'll reach out to Mr. McNeil and introduce him to this product. Maybe he knows about it already. I'm not sure, but with the support of the board, anything that could be an improvement on to what's being done now. I mean, I'm just seeing a trend that's quickly heading towards what we see off island, and everybody's car is white after a snowstorm, not from snow but from salt, and our the longevity of the residuals from a storm here doesn't come close to the residuals off island. We have melting events within the next day or 2 days of a storm here, and I understand liability issues exist, but at the same time, I don't think the environment should be paying the price.
Good.
I want to thank Dave, Mr. Bossy. Thank you for finding this. This is, good research and forward progress for sure. Thank you. So that kind of just jumped us into new business. The boater safety around the boat basin, Peter. Was that still based on the anchor chains?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And we put that on there in anticipation of Sheila being here.
Yes.
So that we could ask her about that.
Yeah.
And if she's not here, then since we talk about it at the last meeting? Did you guys a little bit?
Yeah, I explained, that Lionel Starr brought it to my attention that he was cruising around out in front of there and was yelled at by a deckhand in one of the boats. My concern, and his also, is I have to agree with his concern as far as the amount of square footage or acreage that they're taking up out there, and how much of that area of channel are they entitled to at the boat basin. And
It might be, I don't know, it might be worth a call to Christy Bassett
yeah,
or go visit her and tell her and tell her that this happened and say, we're talking about it. We're trying to get some information. Can you tell us how far as you know, are they allowed to put their chains out? I mean, if someone had, I'm guessing here, just guessing, but if someone had right after Jay had the experience, or even, I'm sorry, Lionel. If Lionel had gone and seen her and said, "Hey, this happened to me. What's up with that?" Could have maybe even got it resolved on the spot or gotten an answer. And now the boat's obviously gone, but it might be worthwhile to talk to Christy, because then she might tell you something you didn't know about that,
exactly. Yes, I don't want to jump the gun and come down hard. Every time like I've said before, I bring up the boat basin, and Sheila you know, Sheila supports them as being a good steward, and they play by the rules, and you know, it's one of the best marinas on the East Coast. I'm sure. I've been impressed with it since it was built when I was a child, and it is a beautiful marina. But you know, how much pollution is it causing? And you know, what do they do to mitigate any of that?
But that's not the
No,
issue. Is the change
and how much, you know, how much area are they paying property tax on? Are they entitled to use that space out there? To me, it all kind of combines together, because if it's not their space and they're using it,
yeah.
could they give something back?
It's definitely
And-
it's all questions for Sheila, for sure. And another thing is it an isolated incident? Has she heard of people complaining about the big yachts on the end before, other than the gray water thing? Has anyone ever complained that they're too far out into the harbor, and has anybody, you know, maybe run over a chain or something? Or
Well, I take a walk down the docks in the summertime, probably 3-4 times, and I've thought ever since I've noticed this method introduced of stacking the boats in like that, you know, how much can the harbor bear? I'm not going to just look at this as Lionel Starr, you know, is concerned because he was yelled at about an anchor chain. I'm seeing the use at the end of that pier alone gone from it supporting 3 yachts to 13 yachts, and
depending on their width,
and using up you know, space that they never used before. Were there any negotiations for this space to be used? Personally, I think it's a legitimate concern that some answers are certainly needed, and I'm certainly willing to. I can talk to Christy Bassett and find out some more from her angle. But I think we also, you know, need to find out from an assessment point of view also.
Might be a thorny issue, though. I mean, how much of the water do we get to use? Mm-hmm. Maybe like saying, it might be saying like, okay, I own a half acre on Nantucket. How much of that do I own above my house? Mm-hmm. How much of the air above, you know, like how much? So if you, the NIR owns the boat basin, so how much of that water around the boat basin belongs to them if they are not actually on land? And so if they own to the low tide mark down the pier, then they owe down to the low tide mark on the pilings, but then how far out into the harbor do they own, or is the harbor water considered common, a common surface that we all share, regulated by the state and the town? I don't know. It's a lot of questions there.
Yeah, it depends on if they're assessed on their area or they assessed it on the value of their business, which means they'd have to show some revenue information. So it may be assessed totally on, you know, commercial real estate is assessed on the value of the business. And so if they're making more money, the assessment might go up. It depends on how they assess it.
Like in years past, I used to paddle my kayak sometimes into the boat basin and look at the boats. And a few times I've been chased out of there by dock workers telling me that I'm not allowed in there. This is private property. And I would yell back, but the water belongs to the state of Massachusetts and the water belongs to Nantucket. You own the physical pier, but you don't own. So I don't know. Do they own within that parameter? Do they own that space that includes the water?
Why do they care that your kayak is there?
Well, they cared because they probably liability.
Insurance, liability.
If a boat backed over me or something happens.
Yeah.
And I would only ever go in there when it was quiet and, at dusk when there aren't boats coming in and out. But I don't do it anymore. But it brings up the question of what
It's an interesting question, right? Private marinas have always done that. They've always kicked people out. They have signs out there. You can't come in here unless you're
A paying customer.
paying customer, right?
But then, so then,
Now, does the boat basin own the mooring field out there too, or is that
No.
or is that Tim Raynamo's concession?
well, the town owns, the town and the state have jurisdiction of all the waters from shore out to 3 miles.
No, but there's the marina, the docks,
Right.
and then outside the docks there are all the moorings.
Yeah, that's not Nantucket Island Resorts, that's the town.
That's the town.
Town.
So they have a concession
It's a town,
for Tim Raynamo to put them in,
Mm-hmm.
but people lease those from the town.
Not all of no.
No,
So
lease
when
them
you,
from
when
the-
you call
From the
in and
town.
say I need a mooring,
Right. When I used to come up, that's right. You'd rent it. There's a business that does that, and I guess it's a concession from the town. But they
Yeah.
run the whole business, and they run the town has the poop boat, but
but it's not the boat base.
it's not the boat base. No, it was a different name. I'm pretty sure
All of this can be answered in probably
by Sheila. Yeah.
1 minute in Sheila.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have a meeting with Sheila about
Okay.
about moorings in general. I'll ask her to tell me more about how everything works.
I understand the possibility of the thorniness of the boat basin, but I think it's, me, if anybody, doesn't like confrontation, that's for sure. But, I think it's worth looking into because I just think of limits being pushed. And if you don't question a limit being pushed, if it's a limit being pushed, then you'll never know.
Well, I can totally see Lionel's point because, he's been here forever. He's got a boat. He's taking a trip, and all of a sudden there's a big chain where he usually takes his boat. And who the hell is somebody on a yacht to tell him that he can't go anywhere? And what's the guy going to do anyway?
I can think of so many times coming from Children's Beach and tooling around the front of there to get to the fuel dock.
Yeah.
And you always, went along the bulkhead or a boat that was tied alongside the bulkhead there. You never worried about getting too close. You watched out for what was coming out of the marina entrance. But I haven't been a boater in 14 years, so things certainly change. But it just seems to me like more space is being used than historically had taken place there.
There's enough room between the big yachts and the mooring.
There's a lot of
I've
room
been
out
through
there
there
between that and
all
the mooring
summer.
fields. Yeah.
There's enough room, and as Dave said, the anchors are really the chain's on the bottom up until just the boat, and you can see the chain go in the water.
Yeah.
And this is some deckhand making sure that somebody he
Thought he was
didn't know what he
important.
was doing
Yeah.
might hit a chain, but there's ample room for two boats to have a lot of room to even big boats could go through there. I don't think it's that's the room isn't the problem. I think the usage is an issue.
Is an issue, right?
But I don't think that
I don't think it's a safety issue. I think it was just a deckhand.
And I think I'm not naive in saying that, Christie runs a tight ship. And I don't think that she would park boats there if she couldn't. I don't think she's pushing them into a place where they shouldn't be. So I think there should be an explanation as to how far she can put them out.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Sheila will have something to tell us about the space that's needed for boats to pass in front of Strait Wharf, in front of the end there, and that maybe there is a limit. I bet there is. I mean, in terms of the size of boat, but we need.
I'll do some research there also. It's because it's a concern that's floating around inside my mind, and so I need it answered. I've known George for years, and I know Christy, so I have no problem approaching
It's
Christy
just,
on that.
it's information that we should have, so
Yeah.
that if other people do come in and
Well,
have a
that's
question,
just
we can
it.
say,
I want to have the answer for other people who question it also. So,
By the way, to Tom's question about Nantucket Moorings is the one that runs the field out in front of the big boats.
which
And I-
is
and I
which
presume
is
that's a concession from through the
That's
town.
Tim Rainham, who puts them out at least. Yeah, he's Nantucket Mooring.
yes,
Okay.
yes, and you know, I don't know all the information there, and you'd have to go back quite a ways. But I've heard some stories that people were unhappy about how the switch was made. The town owned all the moorings. The town hired the mooring handler, and at some point in time, the town kind of conveyed all the equipment that the town owned, namely moorings, I believe, to the mooring handler, and more control was given to the mooring handler. This is just something that I heard was an issue for some people back when, and this took place quite a long time ago. We are where we are today, and you know, you may just run into some people that may have some animosity from the past. I'm not sure, but I mean, there's an awful lot of them. Let's say 2,000 moorings. So we have a lot of mooring activity out there. It's been a concern to me how much, you know, they get put in and taken out and dragged around to set them, and it seems like there's more activity with moorings than there used to be. There's more regulations with the moorings and their gear being checked more often. I think a lot more moorings used to just be left where they are all winter long. They'd get a winter stick on them, and in an environmental standpoint, you think that would be better because they're not being lifted out and disturbing the bottom, dragging them around to reset them in the spring and disturbing the bottom again. But it's the way they do things now, and I was kind of hoping maybe a pilot project of a mooring field outside the jetty could be tried. Over the past few summers, we've seen a couple of yachts outside the jetty, whether it's because they draw too much or no room in the harbor. I'm not sure, but I'd like to know if we had more boats moored outside the harbor than inside the harbor, if that would be better for the harbor. But Sheila didn't really seem to like that idea either because of hurricane.
Tough on the
And
boats.
yeah, but
Tough on the boats. Get beat up out there.
yeah,
I would say that we have more, in your reference to, you know, it used to be this way, it used to be that way with the winter stick. There's many, many, many more moorings now than there were, or at least there are more moorings that have boats on them. Mm-hmm. And so if there's more regulation, that's probably because there are more, because they're trying to protect everything. So
certainly.
it's just a nature of the beast type of thing, I guess.
All right. Any issues on board members' minds for the next meeting? Or anything to recap from this meeting? Have we covered it all? If we have, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would just like to say and get it
Yeah.
on the record, I'd like to see our staff here more often, that's all. So I'd like to see-
Absolutely. Yeah, I was late in sending out reminders today, but I really don't think, I don't think staff needs the reminders. They know when our meetings are.
Right.
It was nice to have Tara in last meeting. She had some information for us that was helpful, and every meeting there's information we need that could be helpful. So I agree with you, Mr. Brace.
Just sometimes we flail about because we're thinking, we're like the discussion of the, Straight Wharf. We know that there are lots of answers out there, and if the right person was here, could answer those questions, and it might be a non-issue, and
We can move on.
yeah, we could move on.
Address it.
Yeah, so.
Do you need a motion to adjourn?
Please.
So
Second.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.